I'm so glad to be here, and it's nice to see. There are a lot of familiar faces here that I know, and not just the NIU crowd who gets to see me all the time, but I see a lot of individuals who have made their contribution to Illinois public higher education, and you've devoted your lives, your professional lives, to serving students and the communities at our state universities. And for some of you, it's decades of commitment. I think it's fair to say, however, that there are a number of changes confronting higher education, and the magnitude and the speed of those changes is perhaps greater now than any other time in the past 50 years, maybe even longer. Some days it just boggles my mind. Perhaps the biggest change of all is that somewhere along the way here, the social contract between our country and higher education has been rewritten. Let me put it more bluntly. I think that contract has been broken. For more than 150 years, we as a nation define higher education as a public good. Boy, that's really true in Illinois. But today, as the battles rage in state capitals across our nation, higher education is cast as a private benefit instead of the best possible investment in the future of the people of a given state or of our nation. And perhaps the most astounding thing about this situation is that our leaders are choosing to cut spending on higher education when our competitors across the globe are doubling down on their investment. Other nations recognize and embrace the fact that higher education is not only a societal good, but it also is the economic engine. Yeah. Well, meanwhile, here at home, our lawmakers struggle to craft policy in the midst of the worst economic times since the Great Depression, and they are shutting down that engine rather than stepping on the accelerator. Doing so, I believe, is a great disservice. It is a disservice to all of you who have worked to build American higher education into the model that it is, and I think still is, and it's admired around the globe. It's a disservice to our country as it weakens our standing in the global marketplace of the future. And most of all, it's a disservice to the students of today and tomorrow who must compete in that marketplace. So lawmakers say we just don't have enough money for higher education. And you know, anybody who looks at the state balance sheet, it's hard to argue that point. I mean, that's a fact. But what I will argue, however, is that the double standard, argue about the double standard which universities are painted today. Public universities' budgets in this state have been reduced every year in my presidency, and I'm just ending my 11th and starting my 12th, and they've been cut every year except 3, and 2 of those years they were flat, and 1 there was a modest increase. But the rest has been it's been cut, and reduced year after year, and then on top of that, having to accommodate the unfunded mandates that, some of them are good public policy, for instance, veterans benefits, tuition remission for that's a good thing. There's no doubt about it, but we have to pay for it, and it has to come out of something. I could go on the unfunded mandates. At NIU over the past 10 years, it's accumulated to $92 million. So, yes, we've raised tuition. It always pains me to do that. Yes, we have raised tuition, but never at a level that could ever offset dollar for dollar the state general revenue reductions. And I don't need to remind you that only 9 days remain until the end of this fiscal year. Every public university in the state is owed millions of dollars in back payments on our appropriation. at NIU, the state owes us 42% of our fiscal year 2011 appropriation. That doesn't vary, but a percentage point across all of the universities. So here we are, it's a 42% budget cut. That's basically what it was. And even that, the balance didn't come in a predictable way. It drives chief financial officers crazy, and it stresses all those individuals in universities who try and balance the budget and make payroll. That's what we've been doing, basically, is everything we can just to make payroll. Well, we've managed, but after 2 years of it, it's pretty darn frustrating. We've managed. How have we done it? Why and how? Because to not meet payroll or pay our bills would break our contract with our employees. And I'm not talking about an employment contract. I'm talking about that commitment, that promise to our employees, to our students and our families, of the people of the state of Illinois. And that, my friends, it's just unacceptable. Simply put, we will not fail our students, their families, and the taxpayers, our employees, who have entrusted us to provide them with the best possible educational opportunities available. And if reducing the state's commitment to the overall university operating funds is not significant enough, public university employees and annuitants are now faced with the prospect of vast and unprecedented changes to their pension and to their annuitant health care benefits. It's incredibly sad and frightening. We were talking at the table. I grew up on a little farm in Northeast Ohio, and we did a little bit of everything, including having only a little bit of money. And at this time of year, in the spring, Dad would always hire on some of the local high school guys and a few hands that we could rustle up. And every Friday, Mom, after work was done, Mom sat at a little card table out in our backyard and did the payroll, had the checks every Friday. Now, this was true of everyone but my sister and I. Our contribution was we were the kids. But there were other things. And I remember one year in particular, I was going to play Little League baseball, and I had my eye on a Stan Musial. I'm a Cubs fan, but a Stan Musial, watch it, baseball mitt, and we were going to start, and Mom said I could have that. But Thursday night she came to me and said, Jano, we were Polish. He says, Jano, I'm sorry we can't get your baseball mitt for you this week. We have to make payroll. I wasn't happy about that, but I wasn't mad at anybody. But because I understood that these guys, my high school kids, they worked. We made an agreement with them. They should be paid. Well, it seems as if many individuals in our state legislature and others, maybe they didn't have that lesson. I don't know, or maybe they forgot that lesson. That once you make a deal with somebody, you keep it. So make no mistake, my friends, what happens in Springfield this fall regarding pension reform and annuitant health care policy changes is of critical importance to every employee and annuitant in the state of Illinois. The decisions made by the General Assembly and the governor will be felt for years to come, in more ways than one, I believe. It'll be felt both in terms of the changes that may accrue in benefits, but also, I think, in the relationship and the respect that exists between employees and government officials. I readily admit that it is really unfair to lay this problem at the feet of employees, people like you and me. After all, in the history of the Illinois pension system, which replaces your eligibility for Social Security, In the history, employees have never failed to pay their share on time. Never. Never. Politicians, however, have repeatedly chosen to defer their constitutionally required contributions. As a result, the Illinois pension system today has an unfunded liability of at least $82 billion. That shortfall is projected to grow to more than $130 billion by 2030 if the system doesn't collapse on itself before that, because people will be leaving the group. Illinois now has the largest unfunded pension obligations of any state in the nation. That bears repeating. The largest unfunded pension obligation of any state in the nation. And our state budget situation is second only to California's nightmare, maybe Greece too.